It's a good time here at Muscle Car of the Week. We've got a lot going on, bringing you different muscle cars from the Brothers Collection each week. And recently we had a milestone on our YouTube channel. We just crossed the 20,000 subscriber mark. So we thought it'd be fun to take a minute to, first of all, thank all of our viewers who check our show out each week, but also acknowledge a few things that we've done on recent episodes and some of the viewer feedback. So we're calling this week Foul-Ups and Follow-Ups on Muscle Car of the Week. So the first car we're going to talk about today is, I guess it follows into the foul-up and follow-up categories of our episode. It's the 2016 Shelby GT350 car that we featured on episode 229 of Muscle Car of the Week. And this one caused quite a controversy. There were a lot of our regular Muscle Car of the Week fans that are only into 60s and 70s cars that might not have been familiar with the 2016 car, and we made them sit through that episode. And some people said, hey, I don't want to see any more new ones, but a lot of people said, hey, I never really paid attention to these late model cars and really learned quite a bit and respect what that car is all about. Conversely, we also had a lot of people who might have been searching for videos on the 2016 car and watched that video and then were exposed to some of our other episodes of Muscle Car of the Week featuring the earlier cars, and they were exposed to some of the earlier ones and learned quite a bit about those too. So it was a nice way to kind of cross-pollinate the enthusiasts that like the new cars and the older ones. At the same time, that episode was not without flaw, because I made a statement in that episode comparing the 2016 car, which was not supercharged and made something like 526 horsepower, and I compared it to an earlier supercharged car that didn't make quite that much power. That's far more than the previous generation GT500 made with a supercharger. I learned the value of the difference between the word and the. And what I'm trying to say is that I said the 2016 car made more horsepower than the previous generation supercharged car, which was incorrect. I meant to say the 2016 car made more horsepower than a supercharged previous generation, specifically the 2008 car. The GT500 for 2008 was supercharged and it only made 500 horsepower. And that's what I was trying to convey. So I appreciate that a lot of people took the time to correct me and point out that I misspoke on that one. We certainly don't mean to send misinformation out there. I think my head was in the right place, but my tongue tripped over my eye tooth and I couldn't see what I was saying. So that's the story on that particular car. The next car we're going to talk about comes from episode number 239, a very recent one of Muscle Car of the Week, the 1971 Dodge Challenger with the 440 six-pack engine. There was a couple interesting comments on that car. A lot of people really liked the black color with the bright orange stripe. Some people pointed out that the car looked really, really good at sunset, and that most cars do look good in what we call the golden light of that time of day. And why don't we shoot more cars in that scenario? And honestly, we'd love to, but there's a couple of factors against us. When we shoot Muscle Car of the Week, we shoot many cars over a short period of time, many cars each day over a 3 or 4 day period. So we don't always have the luxury of having the sun right where we want it. I haven't figured out a way to move it yet. So in this case, that particular Challenger happened to fall in the time period of the sunset. The other thing we got to keep an eye on is that video, even with today's sophisticated cameras, it likes a lot of light. So when you see fancy photographs, still photographs, they can involve a lot of different additional light in addition to a sunset, long exposures, things aren't moving, stuff like that. But video tends to like light, so we tend to try and shoot earlier in the day, because as that sun's going down and you're watching your footage, you want to make sure you get everything you need. So in this case, it was really just the perfect timing of the perfect car. I had a little misspeak on that one as well. I mentioned the torque rating way too low. I said 330 pound-feet. It's actually like 490 on that. Not sure where I was mentally when I said that. But the other feedback we got was that that car was an automatic transmission car. And some people said, hey, why would you bother putting a car like that together and getting an automatic transmission? And the reason, I think, there's several. The first one is that For a drag race application, it's really tough to beat an automatic transmission car. Unless you're somebody like Ronnie Socks, who was like the world's fastest speed shifter and most consistent shifter. But if you think about it, most of the NHRA and drag race records were set with consistency, meaning same shift every time, same RPM, and that's what an automatic allows you to have. That transmission is certainly very strong. It was kind of a Hemi-spec automatic. But when you think about the mechanics of shifting for yourself in a drag race situation, you've got the launch, so you got to get the RPM high enough to where you dump the clutch at the right time every time. There's the amount of slippage in the clutch. Then there's the shift timing of what RPM you shift at, when you actuate the clutch and when you shift. So there's many, many variables. Now, manual shift cars are a lot more fun to drive, I think. And also on road course applications, you control the engine speed by up and down shifting, but it's a longer time frame than it is in a drag race situation. So that's why you see a lot of drag setup cars with automatics. The other thing you'll find is that during the day, after many passes, the clutch can get a little bit slippery and lose consistency there. Plus, if you were going to drive a car like that every day, you had to fight with a very heavy clutch. It took a lot of effort to push that pedal down, especially with mechanical linkage and a race, high pressure clutch. Today, cars have hydraulic clutches, which offer a little bit of assistance to make them easier to use. So I think those reasons in general are why we saw a lot more automatic cars than manual shift back in the day. But again, I agree, it would be more fun to drive with a stick. And speaking of clutches, a lot of sharp eyes caught in episode 237. The Roadrunner A12 car was billowing a little bit of smoke from under the car and not necessarily from the tires or behind the car. And that's a perfect example. That was a manual shift car that we did a whole bunch of launches on, shooting video, and the clutch got a little slippery and a little bit smoky. So that's exactly what that was. A lot of these cars are fresh restorations, or some of them are original cars that have older parts in them. So not every one is in perfect tune when we go to drive them. As much as we'd like them to be, maintaining a fleet of cars in perfect tune all the time can be challenging. And we're very thankful that the team at the Brothers Collection does what they can to get these things dialed in for us. But sometimes you'll see a slippery clutch like that, or something might be leaking or smoking a little bit, and sometimes that's what you get. Staying on the subject of transmissions, I mistakenly called our 57 fuel-injected Bonneville a 2-speed. In fact, those came with a 4-speed Hydromatic automatic transmission, one of the cool features of that car. So I have to retract that statement. Again, we appreciate people pointing that out in the comments and the feedback. And we also like that most people are kind to us when we do have a slip up, and they don't go into full assault mode and beat us up with unkind words. Most people are very understanding, and it's important to know that sometimes we have slip-ups. We don't do it intentionally, and we're not trying to mislead people, so we appreciate the tolerance. We talk a lot about the power that these cars made, and people sometimes ask, hey, where do you get the numbers from, and why don't you just test them yourselves? And those are some great points. A lot of times we use the factory published data from the auto manufacturer when referring to specific cars. Sometimes we'll find magazine stories from back in the day where we assume that they received published data from the manufacturers. A lot of these cars had published numbers that most people didn't believe were true because they were sandbagging insurance companies or other things like that. The reason why we don't just go ahead and test these ourselves are things we've kind of touched on. The logistics of getting cars in and out of a dyno cell in the short period of time that we have to shoot them doesn't really work. We would love to, but we just don't have the logistical machine to make that happen. Also, as I mentioned before, some of these cars are not in perfect tune. They might have been restored and just kind of bolted together to look nice and not, precision dialed in to make optimum power. So we've got that. And with a lot of the cases of the original cars, sometimes the carburetors are a little dried up, sometimes the accelerator pumps are shot. They won't make the power level that they made when they were new. We noticed that on a lot of the 426 Hemi cars with the dual 4-barrel setups, the accelerator pumps seem to go dead in these things all the time. So the team at the Brothers Collection are always running around putting accelerator pumps in the carburetors for us whenever we shoot so that they run at all. We'd love to have the opportunity to dyno all these cars, and maybe someday we'll get that chance. We'll keep you posted. Stay tuned to Muscle Car of the Week to see if we do. And we started this episode talking about the subscribers on Muscle Car of the Week on YouTube. We also carry the show on our V8TV channel, which is slightly different in the sense that kind of between Muscle Car of the Week episodes, we share some of the cars that we're building here in our shop, in the V8 Speed and Resto shop, where we do performance upgrades and restoration. So if you like to see that kind of stuff, we invite you to come over to the V8TV side and subscribe to that one as well. But on the Muscle Car of the Week YouTube channel, a quick update on the top 10 most popular cars per viewer plays. And the list is pretty interesting. It's a little bit unexpected at this point. Today we have Oldsmobiles in the number 1 and 2 slot. Then we've got a couple of Mopars. Then we have a couple of Fords, one Corvette, one Pontiac, an AMC, and another Mopar. And it's interesting to me to see that some of the most common muscle cars aren't necessarily in the top 10. So love to see that. Those play counts go up the more you watch. So if you have a particular favorite or you have a friend that you know likes Oldsmobiles, send them over to the channel because we've got 2 of them in our top 10 slots, and we'll do an update on that later on. So we appreciate everybody checking us out, and we try to bring you the coolest muscle cars every single week. Please subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time with another cool car from the Brothers Collection on Muscle Car of the Week.